Hi, everyone. Welcome to Target Practice, a podcast about great managers, interesting data, and important decisions. I'm Lior Gerson, CEO of Targetboard AI. Every episode, I'm going to sit down with a leading executive from one of the industry's best companies and talk about how they think, decide, and lead. Each guest will answer a fixed set of questions designed to uncover the real stories, their wins, misses, and lessons learned along the way. Today, we have with us David Ginat, a senior technology executive who grew and scaled multiple tech organizations, including being a VP of engineering for SentinelOne, where he led research and development for the company in its hypergrowth stage. Today, Dave is an advisor that helps founders build sustainable growth and success in their engineering teams. David, we've known each other for about a year, and I've been following your work, and it's super exciting. It's really great having you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So, David, you had like a super interesting career. Which achievement do you think, you're most proud of or was the most significant?
I was thinking about it a lot and reflecting on my career, and I've done like a lot of things. I've built organizations from scratch. I've grown organizations. I've changed organizations. I've established processes. I've introduced products, and even in research, like new technologies that no one has before. But when I'm thinking about it, like the most impactful and probably most memorable achievement that I can think about is the people that I manage, the people that were my employees, my team members. There are so many stories that I have of people being promoted, like from a student up to a senior director under me, people who were in a difficult situation in their position as a professional, and they were struggling, and I found a different place for them to grow better, to be more impactful and more and overall a better professional. These are things that remind me why I like so much what I do, and remind me why I like helping other managers to be better at what they do, because it's all about the people.
It's all other people. I have,
Yeah.
people who have worked with me, even here at Targetboard for 20 years.
Amazing.
And people who, you take with you company to company and you see them grow and, it's all about the people, the community you create around you.
Exactly.
Cool. So give you the flip side of that question, right? So what would you change? Like if you had like a magic wand and you said, well, there's one thing that I would change with, a decision that I made in my career. Or at work, it's something that, I do differently.
So I think like every decision that I make, being in a position of an executive is probably the toughest, right? Because if there was a simpler solution or a simpler decision to make, someone else would do it. So I try not to dwell too much about my past decisions, but I do want to tell a story about one of the biggest issues that I had as a manager. I had a very complicated position at SentinelOne, being a single executive in Israel versus an entire staff in the US. Company was growing like crazy, hyperscale on steroids. Very difficult. We moved from a single product line to a multiple product line situation. Very hard. And at some point, I actually looked at the situation and said something is not working well, right? The organization is not working well. We're not moving as fast as we should. We're not moving as effective as we should. And it started creeping up on me that maybe the organizational structure that we had, which was based on components and areas of expertise, back end, front end, databases, and so on and so forth, agents, maybe it was not suitable enough, right? We had so much friction in the planning process, in an execution process, in providing like the status for where are we, what are we doing well, and so on. And we just couldn't move anymore. So at some point, I thought maybe we need to like flip the matrix. Maybe we need to start organizing ourselves in a vertical organizational structure rather than a horizontal one, because it will make us more effective as a whole, because we have 8 different product lines. So maybe we need to split it to different organizations with clear ownership, clear planning process, clear tracking mechanisms, execution, and so on and so forth. Problem is, it was very, very late in the game. And in retrospect, one of the biggest challenges that I had was to identify those issues ahead of time, before the change was too hard to accomplish, was too hard to actually execute. And in retrospect, when I think about it, I had all the indications, but they were hidden, and they were like qualitative, not quantitative. It was very hard to understand, where are the issues, where are we failing, and it was even harder to explain that to people who were not in the trenches, to people who were not part of the R&D organization. Being an R&D leader is I think it's the most complicated position in a company, and it's probably the loneliest one, because nobody else really understands the complexity and the magnitude of.
CEO.
Not even the CEO, I think.
I'm saying you should try being the CEO, see what lonely feels like.
Well, maybe, I don't know. So explaining it to other executives, or even the board of directors, or the CEO, was extremely hard. That was like COVID time, everybody remote. I can't go to the US to sit down over coffee and try to explain something. So I would probably change two things regarding that situation. And I've thought about it like a lot during the past few years. One is, invest in better understanding the picture, like what metrics, what KPIs, what visibility can I get in order to first and foremost understand the situation, decipher it, try to figure out where are we, and so on and so forth. That was direly missing. That's the first thing. But the second thing was that I was all alone. I had my staff, and the directors, and the group leaders, and partners, and even HR helped. But at the end of the day, I was extremely, extremely alone. Whether it's because I was brought up to just suck it up and continue, and do your thing and stop complaining. But I needed help, right? And in retrospect, I would have found someone to talk to, someone to consult with, whether it's like a friend who has the same kind of a position, or a group of people, or maybe even find a mentor or a coach. And I think that in retrospect, this actually is something that led me to start what I'm doing right now, which is to be that person to other executives who are struggling, and they don't have like anyone to talk to or consult with, or even a shoulder to cry on, which is something that often helps.
I think it's super important, and I completely relate with your experience. So when I was CTO at Vroom, all the management at the corporate HQ was in New York, and it was very lonely. I always felt I had to fight to represent the engineering position. And you're playing a game where you keep having to explain yourself because you feel nobody's on your side.
Right.
And I completely get it. I think what you're doing today, is amazing.
Right. And by the way, if you don't have a good story to tell, and maybe we'll talk about it later, but how to tell that story, but it's very difficult to explain the situation as it is. Without, on one hand, being over pessimistic or over optimistic, just realistically showing, where are we, what are the issues, what do we need help, how do we need to solve it, and maybe even brainstorm with other executives on their terms rather than on yours.
Do you feel like at that point in time, right, when you were feeling that way, let's say you had the data, right, do you feel it would have made a difference?
Oh, most definitely. I think that in general, engineering organizations or R&D organizations, they must have a very extensive set of data. We tend to do that, like for alerts and production or logs and so on. It comes very native or natural to engineers to say, hey, if I need to debug the system, I need like metrics from the system. I need like the latency for the APIs, or I need logs or things like that, because otherwise I'm blind. But when it comes to managing organizations, all of a sudden I feel it's okay. It sounds about right. I don't need to measure velocity because the team is doing well. Yeah, we have quality issues, but you know what? I think it's there. It's like one of the first things that I'm doing when I go into a new organization. Every time I stepped into a new position, the first thing I do is to build a few dashboards to get me to understand what's the situation is really like compared to the intuition of the people in the organization, right? If they tell me, or if I feel that there is a quality issue, okay, fine. Let me show me the data. I want to see bug numbers. I want to see severity. I want to understand how long does it take us to resolve the bugs, and so on and so forth. Or if they tell me that we have a specific issue or a technical debt in a component, or we're not investing, okay, show me the data. I need to understand, where is it coming from? Is it just intuition, or is it broken? And it's much more severe than where we are. So it's like the first thing that I do is open these dashboards. And oftentimes I just realize that there's no data, and we need to start building that data, because as we all know, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't fill in the data, then you can't build the dashboards. But it's also a problem because sometimes you just can't build those damn dashboards because the tool is not good enough. And then that's why when I met you and when I met Targetboard, I was like, okay, if I had this as an engineering manager, that would be a big eye opener. That will immensely help me to debug the organization, to understand first and foremost, where am I, and then where are the issues, and then we can start resolving it and tracking like the improvements that we're trying to make.
It's like, as you were saying, like the picture I had in mind was like, being a great cook doesn't necessarily make you a great restaurant manager.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Let's talk about AI for a minute. So what's your take about AI and engineering? And specifically, I spoke today with CTO of a very successful unicorn, and he told me they're focused on agentic developers. Where do you see that sort of coming into play?
Wow, that's a question that I get a lot, and I think that it's the hot topic right now in the engineering market. And the amazing thing is that the technology itself is evolving super fast, right? I mean, every day you see something new, a feature, a system, a capability. If a year or two ago we were very suspicious and we were saying, okay, that's nice, it can accelerate what I can do with documents, it can accelerate with writing a simple tool, maybe it can do some code completion for me, that's nice, maybe write some tests, fine. But then expectations went way up high because everybody were saying, well, it's going to replace everyone, right? All engineers will be out of work soon. I'm hearing this from board of directors who are saying you should not invest a single dollar in your R&D organization until you actually show me that you're able to utilize AI to the maximum and even replace some of your current engineers. Junior developers are completely losing it because they're not being replaced, and so on and so forth. But I think that it's a lot more than that. I think that one of the struggles that a lot of organizations have right now is how to employ this at scale, because even running an engineering organization that runs at scale does, fast code development, like code development, but not just the code itself, but actually delivering a product that works and scales, and you're able to sustain it and solve bugs, and have it being like cost effective, and so on and so forth. All the metrics that you want from a good engineering team. Even that at its own is very, very difficult to accomplish. Now add agentic capabilities or agentic developers or tools that are able to do that, and you get a very big cacophony. I mean, there's a very big problem of taking that and making it a best practice of development, making it a pipeline of development that actually works at scale. Now, I've seen small teams who are doing very well. I've seen founders who are doing the prototyping with like 10, 15, maybe even 20, 50 agents doing their work as a single person. That works well. But if you're trying to do that with a 50 developers organization, that requires a process. It requires a platform. It requires tools of the trade. Now, I'm starting to see that emerging in the market, like tools that enables you to debug better through for an agentic AI, or have better logs, or better readability of the code, or documenting the architecture that emerges from agent code, and so on and so forth, that helps that process. But we're still not there, and people are really struggling between the pressure that they're getting from the board of directors, maybe even from the CEO, of doing better, or doing a lot more with a lot less, with the reality of trying to do that, and then everything breaks and it doesn't work, and you're trying to debug it, or you're trying to deal with hallucinations, and it's not working well yet. It will, and it will require everybody to change. Like even a single developer will have to manage like 10 or 12 or 50 agents, which will have to transform the way that he works or she works, but we're still not there.
It's a good answer. So last question. If you had to pick like one metric that would be like your secret sauce, something that you would recommend engineering managers track to see how well they're actually doing, what would that be?
So unfortunately, I don't think I have a good answer for that, because it's too complex to display in a single one. And there are a few of, which are my go-to. And I think that one of the biggest things that I have, biggest issues that I have with metrics in general on the R&D side, is that they reflect what R&D is doing, but they have a difficulty showing whether R&D is actually serving the business well. And that's something that is a combined effort between R&D and product oftentimes. So I might not give you a single metric, but I will say that if the VP of R&D and VP of product do not agree together on the set of metrics, or even one metric that will reflect what they are trying to achieve, then it doesn't really matter which metric you are going to show, because you need to agree together that these metrics or these KPIs, they actually matter to the organization at that stage of the organization, because the focus obviously changes over time. So whatever you pick, whatever you choose, whatever you measure, make sure that it has an impact on the biggest headache that the business has.
You could track alignment. Like how often does priorities across the different departments change?
As long as both executives actually agree upon it, and they can understand the implication of the results of that metric, and they can talk about it in the executive staff together and defend it, right, and do something about it. Because otherwise, it's just measuring itself, and it's not relevant.
David, super interesting. Thank you so much for joining today. It's always great seeing you. That's all for today for this episode of Target Practice. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time.